Hey there, Derek Rydall here again, and I want to talk in this series of definitions, I want to talk about God. And if that immediately makes you, shrivel and recoil in fear, that's okay, but if you're listening to me, probably that's not really the issue. But I think it's important to define what it is. Now, of course, the first irony is by definition, you cannot define God because you cannot define that which is infinite. And God is just a word. If there is a God, and I believe God is, it doesn't have a name. Its name's not God. If you can name it, that's not it. As the Zen statement talks about, you want to make sure that when you are looking at the finger pointing to the moon, you don't mistake the finger for the moon. So any definition is not the thing because it's infinite. And the minute it becomes some form of concept, it's not the thing, but we still need to be able to talk about it so that when we talk about it, when we talk about universal power, higher power, God, spirit, whatever, that we at least have some idea what we're talking about, and even more importantly, what we're not talking about. And so from all of my deep realization, revelation, insight, experience, and studying of all the great spiritual, religious, and philosophical literature, God or the divine is the foundation of existence. It is what it is. It is the core intelligence, the core power, the core substance that all of creation comes from. But more importantly, it's not a man on a cloud. It's not a woman on a cloud. It's not a human being at all. When it says that we are made in the image and likeness of God, the old joke is we've been trying to repay the favor ever since and make God in the image and likeness of human beings. But this divine presence, this thing out of which everything has come, isn't a thing at all. It is a consciousness, it is an intelligence, it is a presence. It's like the ocean to the fish. It's all around us, in us, and is our very substance. So when I'm speaking about God or spirit or universal presence, it's not a thing and it's not something outside of you. It is the very air you breathe. It is the very substance of your being. And to be even more specific, you can think of it as consciousness itself. Consciousness, as quantum physics has begun to talk about, the field itself is out of which everything emerges. And they've begun to call it consciousness. And so your consciousness, your awareness of life, that is the presence of God or the presence of life itself, but it's at the level of your current conscious awareness of it, because this presence is infinite. We hear words like infinite, eternal, omnipotent, which means all power, omniscience, which means all science or all true knowledge, or all mind or all intelligence, and omnipresence, which means it's everywhere, and it's everywhere in its fullness, because whatever it is, it's not in time or space. Time and space are in it. Time and space are a construct. So when you want to think about what God is and have a deeper, clearer relationship with it, and to become more in alignment with it, which is the most important thing, you want to begin to understand it as consciousness itself, as the field of awareness and intelligence itself, and that it is not separate from you. You can't get to it. You are a center of consciousness in it. You are another unique way God or life is knowing itself as individual being. The same way that in your mind there are many roles. You have the teacher, the healer, the student, the parent, the son, the daughter, whatever it is. You have these different roles, and in each of those roles, all of you is expressing. Well, you are like a role in the mind of God. You are like an idea in the mind of God. You are a unique way that God or life or love or truth, these are all synonyms, that it is expressing as individual being. And so the more clearly and purely and fully you connect with yourself, the more you are actually connecting with God, with the divine. So when you're praying, you begin to understand why I say you do not pray for anything, you pray from it, because it's in you. When you're doing affirmations, I say you're not doing an affirmation, you're doing an affirmation, because you are the place where life or God resides. And the only way more God or good can come into the world is it must come out of you. Now, I'm not making this up. This is what Jesus taught. He said heaven was within you. This is what Buddha taught. He said nirvana was within you. This is what Lao Tzu taught with the Tao. All the great master teachings have never said that this power or intelligence is outside of us. They've all said it's within us and it is us. So I and my Father are one. That's another way of saying this intelligence, this power is what I'm made of. Now, to be clear, you as a personality are not God. That is a relative, temporary expression of your infinite perfection. And so when we hear the words, you are God, a lot of religious people think that's blasphemy. And in a way it is, because the you that you're talking about is usually your personality. It's your historical self. It's the self that arises temporarily and falls back again into the infinite potential. That's not the presence of God as we're talking about it. The you that is God, the I am, is what Jesus said when he said, before Abraham was, I am. He was saying, before and behind all human experience, all of history, there is a self. And that self is never diminished or crowded out or covered up by experience. That self, that unconditional self, that is God. So contemplate this, because again, these are all words, and none of these words are the truth, but they're pointing. It's the finger pointing to the moon. So contemplate this. Share with me and with this community what begins to be revealed for you. And if this is really true, and it is, that this God presence is within you in its fullness, how will you begin to show up in your life? What are the implications of that? I hope this has inspired you, stirred you up a little bit, and that it's made you curious to start to tap more deeply into your consciousness and discover what God is for you. And until next time, remember to live authentically, love unconditionally, and follow your destiny.